To illustrate what we are doing at the observatory in the field of market analysis, I will share some insight on how we believe the COVID-19 crisis is affecting the audiovisual sector. So I will now just share my screen to share a limited number of slides. It should work. So yes, the point of this presentation is to discuss to which extent COVID-19 is a strong event and has a strong impact in the audiovisual sector. But before that, I would like to just briefly remind you what we do in terms of market analysis of the audiovisual sector. And I thought it could be useful maybe to start with to share some figures and see to which extent this film and audiovisual sector on which we are focusing at the observatory is important. And to me, it's important in two respects. From what I would call maybe a culture point of view, let's remember that us, Europeans, we spent about 5 hours a day on average watching TV, watching video, watching Netflix, watching YouTube. So that's the impact from the culture point of view. It's also a kind of very relevant sector from an industry point of view. In terms of contribution to the wealth of Europe, well, the film and audiovisual sector comes, yes, after textile, leather and clothing, but is more important than aerospace or iron and steel. And it's also a sector which accounts for 2 million jobs, both direct and indirect. So quite a big sector, both in terms of cultural relevance and from an industry point of view. So what do we do? Our job is to collect and analyze data from many perspectives as regards the audiovisual sector. The perspective of the production of content, the perspective of the exploitation of content, how are films and TV series exported, the consumer spendings, the audiovisual services themselves, the traditional television broadcasters, but also the new on-demand services, and the main companies which are active in Europe. And we collect all that data to produce what we call data-based evidence. We believe that relying on hard data comparable for our 41 member states is essential to understand what's going on. What do we do with this data? We make them public in public databases. That's basically when we believe there is a need to access our raw data. We analyze them and publish them in the form of reports. And we present them also. We present them at conferences which are organized by the observatory or at conferences where we are invited to present. So that's what we do. And I hope that I will further demonstrate the use of hard data by dealing with a specific topic, which is related to the geoeconomics of the audiovisual sector. The relationships between the different world markets view from a market point of view. And when you talk about the geoeconomics of the audiovisual sector, you're basically trying to look at the relationship between the US on the one side and Europe on the other side. And my question today will be, will on-demand on the one side, and by on-demand I mean the new Netflix-like services, and will COVID-19 on the other hand, transform the geoeconomics of the audiovisual sector, the relationships between US and Europe? It's useful to start with and to understand the evolution, to have maybe a short look back. A short look back, let's say, let's have a look 10 years before. So what was the situation 10 years before? What were the flows between the United States on the one side and Europe on the other side? Well, 10 years ago, we were seeing mostly flows of program, selling of films and TV series, selling of films and TV series to cinema chains in Europe or to broadcasters. So it was mainly a flow of program, a huge flow indeed, which were more or less contained, I must say, because European players wanted also to serve the taste for local content from their consumers, and the flow of program was also contained by a series of regulation regarding quotas, the share of European programs that should be available on television, for example. But just to give an order of magnitude, more or less, the US programs captured in the range of 50% of the market for audiovisual content. The US players started to go further. They thought that selling program was good, was fine, but maybe it was also nice to be able to directly act, to directly manage services in Europe. So the main studios started to move into Europe, not selling only films, but by buying audiovisual companies from Europe. So they bought cinema chains and they bought a series of TV channels in the UK, in Eastern Europe, for instance. So that was the first move, with US players becoming shareholders of European services. But it was still a very limited move. But then came Netflix. And Netflix changed the paradigm of the relationship between the US and Europe. Let's remember, Netflix in Europe, it's 2012 for the UK and Ireland, before an extension to all Europe in 2014 and 2015. And Netflix is different just because it's a model where there is a direct exploitation, a direct selling of services to the European customers by a US company, and to an unseen before magnitude when compared to how the US players were present in Europe before. So that's what Netflix becoming a key player within Europe. And as Netflix opened the way, the other US studios followed and launched their own on-demand services in Europe. The more recent examples are, for example, the Disney Plus on-demand service or the HBO on-demand services. And Netflix was not only followed by the big US studios, it was also followed by very, very important newcomers to the audiovisual sector, just to name two of them, Apple on the one side and Amazon on the other side. So if we look back at these 10 last years, in short, what has happened as regards the relationship between the US and Europe? Well, in short, we have moved from a supplier to client relationship. Remember, US studios selling programs to European broadcasters, to a situation of direct competition, where the US studios, the Netflix, the Apples, are directly selling their services to European consumer. So that's a major shift. And this direct competition, it takes place between European players on the one side and US players, but with very, very different scales. Here you have the level of revenues of the two leading television European groups, RTL, ARD, and the BBC. How do they compare with the major US groups? They compare this way. The leading US groups are 10 times bigger than the leading European group. So it's competition between US and European players, but it's competition with groups of very, very different size. And now that I have set up the landscape, I would like to come to the specific impact of COVID-19. Because we believe that the COVID-19 crisis is likely to again accelerate this position of the US players on the European market. And in my view, it's pretty easy to demonstrate. Let's look at the pre-COVID-19 situation. First, the traditional television market. Are US group very strong? Not that strong, even if they are present. But to take just an example, if we look at the audience market, simply the number of people watching television, US groups capture about 10% of the European television market. But if we look at the new on-demand market, the Netflix, iTunes, Disney Plus market, here the situation is quite different because here the US groups capture about 80% of the European on-demand market. And then comes COVID-19. And what does COVID-19 do on the audiovisual market? Well, the COVID-19 affects and negatively affects most of the traditional television markets, precisely the one where the US groups are not very strong in Europe. But conversely, the COVID-19 tend to boost the on-demand market, precisely the market where the US groups are pretty strong in Europe. So if I summarize this, I would say that in short, it is likely that the transformation of the audiovisual market, which is due both to on-demand and to COVID-19, it is likely that this transformation is mostly going to benefit to US groups. And that leads us to a series of questions. Question related to more power for US group on the European market. I have three questions. The first question is, will Europe lose added value and jobs? What will happen if the leading groups in Europe are controlled by US players? The risk is that the jobs, the tasks with the more added value are no longer based in Europe, but are based in the US. That would mean, for example, that production, programming, research and development are no longer based in Europe, and that only basic functions remains in Europe, basic functions like transmission and marketing. In that scenario, that would be less added value for Europe and probably less jobs. That's my first question. The second question is, will US groups invest in European content? Some say that yes, they will or they are investing in European content to serve European audiences. But our figures suggest that for the moment, the contribution of US groups to European films, to European TV series is much, much smaller than the contribution from our classical television channels. So the question is, will these US groups, will Disney, will Netflix, with Apple invest more in European content? And I would say invest to the proportion that they are controlling the European market? That's my second question. And my third question is linked to the previous one. If there is no such investment in European content, will diversity be at stake? Will there be less European content, less diversity of European content available on the European screens? And that was my third question. And that was what I wanted to present it to you today. And I'm coming back to our mission at the observatory. That's exactly to monitor and understand such a trends, that it is our job to collect, process, and analyze data to serve both the industry and the policymakers who want to understand and address the huge transformation that our sector is, for the moment, experiencing. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I am, of course, available for any question you may have.